Welcome back to All Things Acura. I'm Matt.
And I'm Justin.
And as always, we're back to kind of help you guys out here with All Things Acura. In this case, this is our Acura Incentive video and podcast that we're going to do today.
And we did one before, and we kind of figured that this was a good thing to keep out of the regular podcast because, you know, sometimes you want the information without having to listen to all that regular Acura talk. And so this is we just want to get straight to the incentives and tell you what's available. These incentives change typically on a 2-month basis, but there's no exact rule for that. And you're going to see on today's incentives that these are actually good for a month.
Yeah.
Some being longer, but we're going to talk about them March 1st through April 1st incentives in general. And then we'll tell you what changes after that.
Yeah, and then there's going to be Eclipse incentives and
be an Eclipse incentive.
There's no Eclipse incentive. But yeah,
total
savings. Totality savings.
Yep.
Anyway, so we'll get to the meat of this. I think maybe we'll just answer some of those questions from our
real quick.
Yeah, we'll
sure,
start there. Because it kind of was talking about last month's incentives, and obviously some things can carry over, whatever, and some of these questions here do apply, obviously, as time goes on. So the one question, so again, thank you so much for commenting on our videos. We always appreciate that. So Frankie, hoping March leasing gets even better. Can't wait to hear, which we'll address that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think what you're going to find is that March is the lease month in Acura.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. And then the other question, which is something we can answer, which I think I did already answer in the comments, but if you're listening to this for the first time, it is a good general question. Does the Conquest discount require trade-in of one of those brands or just proof of ownership? And we get this question a lot.
It's a fantastic question.
It is a great question. And I don't want to it's an easy question to answer, but I'm going to talk about it a little bit because we get that call all the time where a lot of times I'm just asking what you have in your household. And if a salesperson's asking you that, they may just be trying to see if you qualify for something. And it does just have to be in the household. You do not have to trade it in. So I get that.
Yeah. I mean, in technical sense, it doesn't even have to be your car. It just needs to be registered at that same address,
right?
Again, household. So it can be a son, a daughter, a sibling that lives there.
Yeah.
That has that product and it qualifies. But you do have to show proof of that. So.
And those two proofs are...
can't be grandma's car across the country.
Right.
It needs to be yours.
Yeah.
Or in the household.
Right, exactly. And the two proofs that you just need one or the other, it just has to be an insurance with the VIN of the vehicle or the registration of that vehicle. So,
yeah. So that's a great question. We get that all the time. You do not need to get rid of that car, though. It's just proving ownership. So,
and it doesn't help you say, does it help if I say that?
Yeah, it does not help.
Doesn't help you. It's either you get it or you don't.
Yeah, need the evidence. So, all right. So as we jump in, Acura incentives for March 1st, which started several days ago, depending on when this actually goes live, which will be pretty quickly here, to April 1st. We're going to start with the Integra, excluding Type S. Unfortunately, there are no incentives on the Type S. Again, limited availability as far as vehicles go. Finance rates. So this is it. So what Acura has done from the past incentives, we'll kind of recap. They went to a better rate of 1.9, but it is only up to 36 months. So if you're out there looking for a good rate, there is a good rate available. It is just up to a 24 to 36 month term. So Acura has really hopped on as far as the leasing incentives go. So we're going to break those down, and these are going to get a little more complicated because they have. And I make sure I got all these right because
do you see something?
I actually see an error already.
Well, we can either edit it.
We can edit it
with the power of editing.
Yeah.
Or.
So hold please, and we will edit.
Be back after these messages.
All right, and the lease on the Integra has a special 24-month lease. Yes, 2-year lease that they're announcing. And this is a special money factor of 0.0095. That converted to an interest rate would be 2.28. That also comes with 24 months special lease cash of $750. Now, if that payment doesn't work out for you, they still offer a longer term, actually all the way up to 48 months again, as far as a rate of 0.00. I missed my decimal. It is 0.00. I will go back and try to fix that for you folks.
We're
But
gonna
I'm
go
not
back
changing it again. Converted to a 2.88% interest rate. That also comes with $500 bonus lease cash. And again, this cash does end April 1st, and they are very specific about that, so we don't know if we'll see that go on, and you'll see that in some of the other models here as we go. Still have your $750 Acura loyalty or $500 Conquest, depending on what you qualify. And those available Conquest owners are vehicles would be 2014 newer Audi, BMW, Cadillac, Honda, Hyundai, Kia, Nissan, Subaru, Toyota, and Volkswagen.
Excellent. Yes, thank you.
All right, that was a mouthful. Now moving on to the TLX 23, excluding Type S.
Yes, because the Type S does have actually some stuff, but we'll start here with the finance terms. So Acura is still running that 3.9 and 4.9, the 3.9 for the up to 36 months and the 4.9 up to 60 respectively. The interesting part about this, so again, the other cars, well, we'll talk about the 1.9, but after those two rates, did you put the captive? Okay, so the $500 bonus cash it says captive cash for the higher trims, excluding Type S. So those trims, and I believe it's A specs and or advanced packages.
Correct.
So it's both. It's basically the two highest trims. So any remaining A specs, whether it's all-wheel drive or front-wheel drive, and it looks like the advanced package are on that list.
So it's finance cash, meaning that you have to use the finance rates to get that extra cash. And so unlike the loyalty and the Conquest offers, which you can use no matter how you pay for the vehicle, whether that be lease, purchase, or cash, this is finance cash only, so it can be combined with those rates. You do need to use those rates through Acura Finance.
Yeah, which are still good rates, by the way. As far as the lease incentives on the remaining 2023, so keep in mind that inventory is running pretty slim on those. So they are not doing a 20. I shouldn't say that. They're not, well, specifically on the 2023s, they're only doing the 24 to 48 month leasing. They don't have a special incentive for only the 24 months. But anyway, so we have the 0.00044 rate, which turns into a 1.06 interest rate, which is pretty good on that.
Really?
And then again, they have the high trim captive lease cash, which again is for the high trims, the A specs or advanced models. And then the nice thing about the 23 TLX is it still has the $1,000 loyalty and the $1,000 Conquest, which is available to the following vehicles: a 2013 or newer Audi, BMW, Cadillac, Genesis, Honda, Infiniti, Lexus, Mercedes, Tesla, or Volvo vehicles. So that is part of the 2023 TLXs.
And the bonus slide is they still cap the finance rates and the lease rates on the 2023 Acura TLX Type S. I imagine there are not many of these still sitting on the ground out there, but if there is one and you come across it, you can still take advantage of that special finance rates or the lease rate, which again 0.0085 is converts to almost only a 2% rate, and they did put a big red asterisk that both on the 23 regular TLX and Type S that those will end at the end of this month or April 1st.
Oh yeah.
And again, they're carrying that program over. The 24s came out a little later, so they're hanging on a couple incentives on these 23s.
I have a feeling this is probably your last chance to lease a 23.
Correct.
Right? Because after those are gone, all those incentives are going to carry over to the TLX. Or I shouldn't say carry over because they already have incentives on 24s, but they'll wipe that slate clean on 23s.
Yep. So here's your 24s, excluding Type S.
Yeah, so on to the 24s, which we started to get some of those. So with the finance incentives, back to what the Integra has, which is the 1.9 up to 36 months, again, for well-qualified buyers. And again, there's unfortunately nothing for up to 60 months. But again, this is great for cash buyers. I know this is a whole separate conversation, but obviously Acura is trying to convert maybe some people who are buying cash. And then if you go to the lease incentives, we have a 0.0013 money factor for the 27 through 48 months, which converts to a 3.12. And then you have the 0.00110 on the 24 months, which again converts to a 2.64. And they do have the for the 24-month lease, again, which is more specific to not on the 23 TLXs, but on the 24s. The 750 captive lease cash, which is great. And then you have the lease finance, or whether you're leasing, finance, or you're paying cash, you do get the loyalty and or the conquest benefit there. And I want to specify, you only get one of those.
Right.
So
yeah, you might have a conquest vehicle and an Acura in your household, but you can only use one of them. Take the greater of the two. In this scenario, the TLX happens to be the same, but most of them, the Acura loyalty is greater than the conquest loyalty.
And again, it is the same list as the previous one as far as
I didn't list them out there, unfortunately.
Yeah. But same thing. I'll just read them out real quick. The Audi, BMW, Cadillac, Genesis, Honda, Infiniti, Lexus, Mercedes, Tesla, Volvo vehicles.
RDX, again, they broke it down into Region A and Region B. We will only cover Region A, which we're in. Please refer to Acura.com if you're interested in what they offer on Region B. And again, it's not much different, just a little bit different lease rates. Financing is the same for both regions. And financing, back to that 1.9, that fantastic rate, but 24 to 36 months. No other options available there as far as rates. But lease incentives, we do have the 27 to 48 month lease rate at 0.00120. That converts to a 2.88% rate. And then they have that 24-month special rate, 2-year rate of 0.00105, which converts to 2.5, and 24 months, they offer that $1,000 lease cash.
Yep.
Again, so you combine that rate with the $1,000 lease cash for that 2-year term. March bonus cash is $500, and again, that specifies that will end April 1st. And then lease finance or cash is available with that $1,000 Acura loyalty or $750 conquest. And the conquest is on anything 2014 or newer. In the Acura, Audi.
All right.
Acura.
I guess, that's fair.
But for conquest, it'd be Audi, BMW, Buick, Cadillac, Genesis, Honda, Infiniti, Lexus, Lincoln, Mercedes-Benz, Tesla, Volvos.
And just to be clear, I had someone earlier that thought that if they bought the car, that they would get the $1,000 loyalty along with the captive lease cash. I'm not sure how it's listing on an Acura's website, because obviously that might have been a little confusing earlier. But it's either you get the loyalty. Well, I guess if you lease, you can get both. So keep that in mind.
Yeah.
So
lease, again, so these are, as you can see, the 24-month term, the extra cash, the great rates on either terms you go. Can be combined with that loyalty or conquest. And again, that's when we mentioned at the start of the show that leasing is kind of what they're after here in March.
Yep. And then last but not least, the MDX, I think, has some of the best incentives on it when you really look at it across the board. So we'll start with the finance incentives. Again, still that 1.9 for up to 36 months. Nothing, again, for up to 60 months, which is a little bit unfortunate, but it is what it is. When it comes to the lease incentives, then again, this is for Region A. And for the 27 through 48 month term, we have the 0.0089, which converts to a 2.14%. And then the 24 months, which is the 0.00068, which converts to a 1.63. And you do get the 24 month lease cash, which is $1,500, which is great. So that is, again, a little bit, obviously $500 more than the RDX. And then they have the March Madness captive lease cash out the $500. So again, depending on which term you do, you'll get one or the other, not both.
And Matt just renamed that for you, March Madness cash.
It is called March Madness cash. What? This is March Madness. What?
Where do you see it says March bonus cash?
March Madness captive lease cash.
I guess it is. I don't know.
Right there. Where do you see that? March Madness captive lease cash?
How come yours is different than mine?
What do you mean?
It is.
Which one does yours say?
Wow. They changed the name.
When did you print that?
Apparently not soon enough. Or too soon. One of the two. See?
That's funny.
It's like a live show.
It is a live show. Anyway, yeah.
Different. Now I'm nervous. What else is different? But... Oh, see, they did change it after. See, mine says excludes Type S and yours doesn't.
Yeah, well, see, it's interesting, and this is live. Well, obviously we didn't compare that because we assumed that they would be the same.
Right. Who knew?
Maybe yours is different for some reason. Anyway, the Type S is listed differently anyway.
Excludes Type S.
It does exclude. Type S has nothing, okay? So just so everyone knows. And then with the loyalty or conquest cash, the $1,500 for loyalty and then the $750 for conquest. I just wish they'd bump it up. Just put it to $1,000 on
the conquest.
Just do it. Come on, Acura. You bumped it up on the other one. Just pump it up on that.
Yeah, well, those are great rates. So I tell you, with the lease, I mean that's low.
It's about as low as it gets.
Especially with as low as rates are right, or as high as rates are right now.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree.
I'm thinking back to when rates were low. These lease rates weren't that low to be then, and now they're. And so what happens is the manufacturer buys down those rates. They're spending money to take that normal rate up there of 6, 7, 8%, whatever it is, and they're paying it down to get down to 2%.
Yeah, the manufacturer has to do that,
right? To make that rate attractive for that lease, and that's they're low. And the benefit of this time of year on a model like this, and people ask us all the time, especially during the summer, you say, why aren't the leases better now than what they were because the car's getting older? Well, what happens is that car gets older throughout the year. That's what people don't understand about leasing is that model year is getting older. So it's a 24, but it's getting older. So the end value is going down, which means it's the gap that you pay between the price and the end value is what you pay for a lease. And so they only can adjust those so much. So now you have the benefit of, good residual values, the rates that they're supporting, the extra bonus cash, the loyalty or conquest. I mean, I venture to say that on the 24 MDX, I don't know that we're going to see this much better through the rest of its year. Now, the 25s will come out, and those will be a little bit different, but they're not going to put the same type of incentives on the 25 when that rolls out.
And for sure, it'll be interesting because I know we've talked about the 25 coming out, and this is where talking about the next model year on a lease, because leases can fluctuate on really any given month, depending on, like you're saying, what the residual value as time goes on, you have that drop, and then the manufacturer has to decide, do we continue to support that by continuing to offer the rates, or do we keep incentivizing that rate to kind of keep up with how the market's going in that car? So it is based upon a lot of that, and depending on when we get that 2025 year, this could be the peak time to get a lease on an MDX, because after that, like you said, it could potentially get worse. As
we start to lose this little bit of extra cash, you say, well, it's only $500. I understand that, but if it's $500 here, and if the residual, which typically happens after each quarter, drops 1% to 2%, well, on an MDX, $50,000-$60,000, that's $1,000. $1,200 plus the $500. Now you're talking about a $50-$60 swing in the payment, more. Yeah, not less, more, and it's hard to offset that with a better rate, right? They're already down to 2%. So where are you going to go? Even if they go down to almost nothing, it doesn't offset some of that extra cash
absolutely.
and money.
The rate, like you said, doesn't get much better than that. We're hovering in territory of pre-COVID.
Right, and the residuals aren't going up. That's just the reality of it. I mean, if that market actually, as we see, it'll be interesting to see 25s because they predict those out in the future, and they're not done by the manufacturer. Actually, there's an outside company that handles that and does that. It'll be interesting to see how they predict that stuff because the used car market has started to come out of the ether quite a bit. As a matter of fact, it's dropped, considerably just in the last 12 months. Yep. And so it'll be interesting to see how they expect it to go in the next 2 or 3 years with those residual values. So again, that all plays effect in your payments when it comes to a lease if you're interested in that. I didn't make a slide for the Type S MDX because there are no programs on the Type S MDX.
Got it.
Unlike the TLX 23, but the 24 Type S TLX, there are no programs on. Again, still limited supply of those cars. There's probably more than what there was in the past, but there's still limited supply and they don't have any programs. Don't know how that's going to go down the road. So,
And keep in mind, so as a good example, I just ran a client who came in about a year ago, just the one that we did the other day. We ran the payments again because she was like, I think they're too high right now. They were about $100 less per month than what we ran almost basically a year ago.
That's good. Yeah, that's good.
So that's a good temperature to say, okay, here's where it's at now. It's not we don't know what's going to happen over the course of the year, but like based on where we're at, this is about the peak or the valley.
So,
I
but
guess
as far as leasing is concerned, now who knows what happened with rates? There was talk about the Fed dropping rates, and we did have a little discussion about that because the Fed is expected to drop rates. That's the rumor. Nobody knows if that's really going to happen. But even if they do, keep in mind that if they drop rates several times throughout the year, it won't make that big of an impact on the actual rate.
Right.
Because if they drop it 1 basis point, it barely changes the rate, a quarter or 0.5% at the most.
Yeah.
It's a fraction. So it's very little. You got to keep that stuff in the forefront. I know we get excited when we hear that. It went up so fast. They raised them multiple times to get to where we're at. It's going to take multiple times to get back, and I don't think they're going to go all the way back. That's just the reality of history.
And while we do obviously follow what the federal rates look like, ultimately a manufacturer has to do what they need to do to sell the cars. So that's there's give and take to that. So I think we're in a good lease spot right now at the beginning of the year here.
Those retail rates of 1.9, I know it's a short term, but if you were thinking, hey, I just don't want to fork out my hard-earned cash to buy one of these cars, and I'm not paying 7, 8, 9%. 1.9 is an awesome rate to take advantage of for 36 months. If you're waiting for 0% on an Acura, you won't own one.
It's not your.
Been with the Acura brand for over 20 years. We've never, no matter how low the rates were, have 0%. That's just not something they do. Have they had low rates? Have they had 1.9s before? Sure. They might even have 0.9 at one time for a short term, but they never had 0. So if you're waiting for that, if that was your trigger, it's not going to happen. You'll own something else.
Remember when we found those old rate sheets in like the catacombs back there?
Yeah.
It was like there was ZDX on theirs back in 2010 and MDX. Yep. It was like I want to say it was like $559 with like $5,000 down. On
the payments were expensive. It's funny how that cycle goes, and we get used to some really attractive payments on some expensive cars. But if you go back in history and look at some of them, gosh, there were, back then MDX pretty well equipped, maybe pushed $50,000, and some of those payments were $600-700 a month.
Yeah,
really not a whole lot different than they probably are now.
Right.
It just given a different time, different landscape. So that's the incentives. We will go back and revisit these April 1st to see what changes, what might have went away, see if they add anything. But be cautious of that lease cash. Just like the rates, we would have never made any assumption that those retail rates would have changed much from 60 months.
Sure, yeah.
And actually, not only did they change, it just completely went away.
Right, that's right. Yeah, we have no idea. So, surprise.
So, yeah.
Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. We always appreciate it. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, because those comments do help us. While we don't always reply back to them, we do read them as it comes across as a notification.
Yep.
And then that way we know, hey, maybe this is how we can guide those talks or whatever. But thank you again so much. Have a great night.
Thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon.